Elijah McCoy's inventiveness led him to develop automatic lubrication of moving machine parts on heavy-duty equipment. The drip cup, his most popular design, was the key in perfecting the lubrication system still in use today. The real McCoy was a phrase coined to describe his invention. Garrett A. Morgan's gas inhalator or gas mask invention was put to the initial test in a daring underwater rescue. Orders began to pour into his Cleveland, Ohio base, but when his race became known, many were canceled. His first invention was an improvement on the sewing machine. Subsequently, Morgan created the automatic traffic sign, which commanded $40,000 from the General Electric Company. Lewis Howard Latimer was an expert in electrical engineering and technical draftsman who executed the drawings and assisted in preparing applications for the patents of Alexander Graham Bell. Latimer was instrumental in creating an incandescent light bulb. He eventually joined Thomas Edison's firm, drawing original plans for inventions later produced. The shoe-lasting machine that practically manufactured an entire shoe in one operation was invented by Dutch Guinea-born E. Jan Matzlinger. It brought about a 50% drop in shoe prices across the U.S., doubled wages, and improved working conditions for those millions employed in the shoe industry during the Industrial Revolution. In 1845, Norbert Rouleau invented a vacuum evaporating pan process to refine sugar at a greatly reduced cost and producing a far superior product. Settling in Cincinnati, Columbus, Ohio native Granville T. Woods obtained 50 patents for inventions during his lifetime. The synchronous multiplex railway telegraph was one of many inventions by Woods. It allowed communication between stations for moving railroad trains, reducing danger of accidents. Cincinnati, Ohioan Frederick McKinley Jones gained fame in the 1920s when he adapted a series of devices to adapt silent movie projects to talkies. In 1935, Jones produced the first successful refrigerated rail cars and trucks to ship perishable food long distances. George Washington founded the city of Centralia in Washington State. In order to attract new settlers, he offered free plots of land and moving services. When an economic depression hit the town in 1893, he carried out a very successful recovery program. A gifted child, Maggie Lena Walker completed high school at age 16 and began a teaching career. Maggie founded and served as president of the St. Luke Bank and Trust Company in the early 1900s. The bank was a depository for gas, water, and city tax accounts. Bill Pickett was a well-known black cowboy who invented steer wrestling. Owner of a large cattle ranch, Bill made it the home base of his 101 Wild West show. Barney L. Ford was a fugitive slave who went to Colorado in 1860 searching for gold. He found some, but was robbed by outlaws. Barney's lucky streak came later when he became a wealthy hotel owner and restaurateur in Denver. William and Ellen Craft, fugitive slaves, cleverly escaped bondage. Ellen, who was light-complexioned, dressed as a man pretending to be William's white master. This enabled them to travel undetected. Abolitionists sent the Crafts to England, and William was employed by a London firm that sent him to Africa to establish branches there. After the Civil War, the Crafts returned to Georgia, where they purchased a plantation and established an industrial school for black youth.
From the seat of civilization, Mother Africa has come a rich legacy of many creative art forms. Each a tradition that is inherited in her descendants. The natural beat, rhythms that comprise the soul of tribal music and dance. Blues, jazz, gospel, funk, which gave birth to other derivative styles.
Le Chevalier de St. Georges was a classical music composer of African-French descent who wrote concertos and dramatic opera. He was also active as a soldier in the French Revolution. Will Marion Cook was an outstanding composer of musical comedy. Cook formed the American Syncopated Orchestra, appearing on the theatrical circuit throughout America and Europe. In 1935, Cook completed the musical drama St. Louis Woman. James A. Bland studied at Howard University in Washington, D.C., and became one of the most prolific songwriters in America. Out of nearly 700 songs he wrote, only 38 were protected under copyright. His Carry Me Back to Old Virginia was adopted as the official state song of Virginia. Harry T. Burleigh, noted composer, arranger, and singer, was a trailblazer who toured the U.S. and Europe before mixed audiences. Concert singers performed black spirituals Burleigh arranged. Samuel Coleridge Taylor, noted English composer of African descent, was born in London. In 1890, Samuel entered the Royal College of Music. Throughout his life, he conducted, performed, and taught music abroad and in the U.S. He influenced many musicians. Another gifted composer and pianist who appeared on programs with the likes of Harry Burleigh, S. Coleridge Taylor, and Will Marion Cook was the brilliant R. Nathaniel Dett. He ranked as one of the top songwriters of his day. John Wesley Work Sr., collector and musical interpreter of black spirituals, studied both at Fisk and Howard University. Work traveled with and directed the Fisk Jubilee Singers, whose tours raised large funds for Fisk University.
From the South, they rode to Cincinnati, fighting cold and starvation, shut out of hotels, and sneered at. But they persevered and went on to worldwide fame and recognition. Clyde Leroy Glass, a classical pianist who studied both here in the U.S. and in Europe, gained great recognition for his work in the early 1900s. Born in 1904 in New York City, classical violinist Eugene Mars Martin began his musical education and career at age 3. Clarence Cameron White, another brilliant violinist, studied at the Oberlin, Ohio Conservatory of Music and for several years abroad with a Russian violinist of great fame. White was also a pupil of Samuel Coleridge Taylor. Egbert Williams and George Walker were an outstanding acting, singing, dancing, and comedy team in the late 1800s. They produced a number of shows on Broadway. Mamie Smith was a powerful blues singer of her day. As a matter of fact, she was the first blues singer to be pressed on a recording, preceding even the great Bessie Smith, who was not related to Mamie, but was famous in the same era. Joseph King Oliver was considered to be one of the founding fathers of jazz. Oliver was a cornet horn player. Pianist and singer Tony Jackson had his start wowing crowds at Countess Piazza's Bordello. Madame Cicerita Jones, a great operatic singer in the late 1800s, could not push open the door to acceptance here in the United States. However, she performed in principal cities throughout Europe and established her own company, Black Paddy's Troubadours.